So today I'll be presenting this paper that is work that was done with my intern, Ying-Yu Chen from the University of Washington, and my colleague Christian Holz, who is sitting here in the front row. And this is a new way to share location-based information while preserving privacy. So first, let's just take a step back and think about why we share location in the first place. Back in 2008, we had run a study that looked at why people were sharing location information in their phone calls. And one of the things we saw was that people would share location information to know when someone else will arrive. You know, how many minutes away are you? When will you be home? Calling their kids, asking when they're on their way home, things like that. Also to know when you'll arrive someplace. So you might call someone else and say, I'm at this station. How long is it going to take to get to your location? Or just availability. Are you at work? Is it okay to talk to you right now? These are reasons why people share location in phone calls. So many systems have been built to support location sharing over the years. There are systems that share a precise location all of the time. So starting with systems like Looped and Helio, moving on to systems like Google Latitude or Find My Friends. These are things where it's kind of video game style. You see all of your friends on an overhead map and you see exactly where they are at all times. Obviously there are a lot of privacy concerns with apps like this, and a lot of people feel uncomfortable using them because their friends literally track them around on a map. There are other systems that share abstractions of locations, but again, all of the time. Some of these shared things like motion, like our system that we built in 2007. Some share mode of transportation, like you're currently driving, or that you're at home or work, or things like that. Again, it's sharing all of the time, though. So there are a lot of privacy concerns, again, with systems like this. There are some that are on demand. So this early system from Smith et al. Was kind of a precursor to things like Foursquare that are out there today, where you pick a venue and you share to people that you are at that venue at that particular time. But one area that was very underexplored was the on-demand but abstract location. So that's something that we wanted to explore with the system that we ended up building. So we had some design goals. We wanted a system that was privacy preserving. We didn't want to share absolute location. We wanted to share to only one person at a time, and we wanted it to be reciprocal. So if you see my time away or my location, I can see yours as well. We also wanted it to be effortless. We wanted to make it so it was one-touch interaction. The person who was in transit didn't need to interact with their phone, because if you're driving or otherwise occupied, you don't want to have to take out your phone to approve something. And we wanted to share data that was actually useful to the person trying to meet up. Often sharing an absolute location doesn't actually answer the question of when someone will arrive. You don't know what traffic conditions are or transportation schedules or things like that. So the app we built, we called it the Pair app because you were only connected to one person at a time. And it would basically create little mini apps on the home screen of your phone for the people who are close to you in your life that you wanted to connect to. So I could click on Christian there on the bottom, and it would open a chat with him. It's just a standard chat app, text, photos. But we added the little button on the top to request the other person's time away. And when you press that little button on the top, the little bar opens up and it tells you how many minutes away that person is by walking, by transit, or by driving, using real-time APIs and current conditions. And you can tell this is the Bay Area because a 47-minute drive is 165 minutes by public transit. Our public transit is horrible in the Bay Area. So we built this, but we wanted to see how people would use it in their daily lives. Was this a useful thing for people to be able to see the time away? So we ran a study with 20 diverse participants. We recruited 10 main participants, and they each recruited a friend or partner to use the system with. They used it for 21 days in their daily life. Twice a week, they called a voicemail diary and talked about how they had been using it. We had the app instrumented, so we knew every click, every interaction that they made in the app. And importantly, we said to them that there was no use of the app required. They would get compensation for participating in the study regardless of if they used it at all. And we only showed this time away feature briefly. It was basically set up as here's a new texting app to use with one close friend, and we'd like you to use this as you see fit over the 3 weeks of the study. And then we had a final interview about use at the end. The study was conducted last summer in California, in the Bay Area. So how often did they use it? This is the use of the location feature over the duration of the study. On average, each pair used it 12 times over the 21 days. And they also, during that time, sent 78 text messages and about 2.5 photos back and forth. You can see there's a reduced use on the weekends. That's because normally, with your partner, you might be with them more often during the weekend and don't need to kind of see when they'll be home. But it was used more heavily, obviously, during the weekdays, and use stayed high during the weekdays throughout the study. But more qualitatively, how was it used? People used it to coordinate meeting up. So, they said you don't have to interrupt the other person and call them, like, how far are you? You just look. And just by looking, you can see, when they'll arrive at your current location. There was a handoff between two partners, and she was coming from her office to pick up the dog. This guy was in a hurry. He had a meeting he had to run to. So he opened up the app and saw she was getting really close. And that reduced the stress of, kind of waiting. When is she going to get here? When can she take the dog? I can't take my dog into the meeting with me. So just by pressing that button, seeing she was a couple minutes away, they were able to coordinate. Same with the bottom situation as well. They pulled up the ETA, saw that she was on her way, and was able to talk. And she was actually on the phone with someone else, which is why she wasn't answering his request for where are you. Just a couple other coordination tasks here. This was a woman who really wanted to have a hot meal ready for her husband right when he walked in the door. And she said before the system, he'd show up 30 minutes early, 30 minutes late, it wouldn't be ready. As she told us, imagine if I cooked the meal 30 minutes before, fried food cold is gross. So the system let her really time the food for when he would arrive, which was really nice. So some quick thoughts on privacy before we wrap up. People saw that it was better than absolute location. It made them feel comfortable, and that sharing an exact location would be kind of creepy. But also for other folks, that some people might check it at times that they didn't want to. This guy was driving by his girlfriend's house and wasn't planning on stopping. She checked, saw he was nearby, and said, "Why aren't you stopping?" But I will note that despite that, he used it more than any other participant, so he still found it quite useful in his life. So just some quick takeaways. We had some novel features that made the app successful. It was a request-based pull based by the person who wanted to know the time away. This abstraction was very useful for them, and the reciprocity means it wasn't heavily misused. So if I requested yours, you saw mine, so people weren't pressing this button all of the time. Some future directions would be looking at this for families and groups, and also looking at in-home displays that could show, kind of when people are arriving home. And this is a note, so I'm out of time, but happy to take a quick question. Thank you.
Daniel Rahami, FXPAL. Frank, I really like this work. I have a question for you about the privacy aspect. Usually in privacy issues come when we have something that shows us glances of something, but when someone starts tracing over time, that's when all of a sudden they can discover things that we didn't mean to originally.
Sure.
Did you think about what would happen if someone just tracked distance from me by time, let's say throughout a month or two?
Yeah, so one of the things that we really wanted to do with this, with the reciprocity, is that because you see when someone requests it of you, the other person probably isn't going to keep doing it a lot over time. And if they are, you can just uninstall the app and not use it with them. So that was one of the ways we tried to get around the fact that someone might try to do this over time and more follow you or track you the way something like Google Latitude might work, or an app where you can see people on a map. Great. Happy to chat with anyone else later.